I want to ask you a question. I want you to think with me. We have so many fictions and works of art and within the context of human imagination, within history. Shakespeare, to Tolstoy, to Edgar Allan Poe, to some of the newer, more famous novelists and authors, the Twilight series and Harry Potter and so on and so forth. People are fascinated by stories. They're fascinated by plot twists, by character development, by suspense, by drama. They're just completely captivated by the essence of a story. But what is the story of mankind? What is our story? And why are we here? And what is our character development? And what is the plot? And what is the setting for humankind? Genesis 1. In the beginning, God. Now, that phrase by itself angers a lot of atheists. It angers a lot of people. They're angry at that mentioning of God. Before we even get into any concept of who God is or what the Bible has to say about God, they've just been completely turned off by religion and by anything and everything to do with it, because most often what they see is hypocrisy in the church. But what I'm talking about is that when you separate the misdeeds of people that are done in the name of God, and you separate corruption from one particular religion, I think it's easy to see that people themselves are corrupt and that people themselves lie. And so we do not want the message to be skewed by the flaws of the messenger. That being said, let us look deeply in the book of Genesis on a quick overview and see what the Bible says is the beginning of humanity. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse and separated the waters from under the expanse, from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed in their fruits, trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind, on the earth." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. Now I'm going to stop here for a moment before we go on, and I want you to pay attention to a few attributes of this passage. Notice how when God spoke, things came into existence. And we have this concept in society. Through positive thinking, you're able to manifest your dreams into reality. This is nothing new, of course. This idea of being a creator was originally found in the book of Genesis thousands and thousands of years ago. That God would be able to speak things into existence tells us that he is a divine creator. Notice also how it says on the third day that the earth sprout vegetation and plants yielding seed. How is it that you can take a small little seed like a mustard seed or oregano seeds and plant them, and yet you get these plants that just sprout up over time, and through their DNA they reproduce after their kind, and they have certain defense mechanisms that allow them to consist with their predators and with decay and all of the whims of weather and various conditions that allow them to continue, and so that they can survive. How is it that they have that life in them? How is it that they have that source of power in them? Where did that come from? I mean, seriously, where did that force come from? It came from God. Now, when we look at Romans, I want to skip over to Romans very quickly. And we'll come back to Genesis. And depending on how things go, I might make this a little bit longer of a video. I want to get into certain topics of young Earth and old Earth, and how carbon dating plays into the creation, so that we can kind of understand various views of how the Earth came about, and where we can kind of set the standard line 6,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, of when the Earth was created, and so on and so forth. There's various views to look at considering these things. But I'm going to hop over to Romans with me and do so as well. We're going to go over to Romans chapter 1. Now, notice also that after the completion of each day, God would say that it was good. When you go through the whole Genesis account, in the creation account, you see he says it was good. This was good. When you come into nature, you see that there's a certain essence to it. You know, there's a certain sense of how things continue. There's cycles, there's decay of trees, and then decay of plant matter, and that decay turns back into the soil, and the soil has certain nutrients that are utilized by the next generation of seeds and plants so that they can grow. And so there's this continual cycle, and it works perfectly when it is allowed to complete its full cycle without any tampering. And it's good. It's good. Anytime you've gone to the beach, I mean, you go into the forest or the Amazon River, or you go to Niagara Falls, you just see nature and experience for itself for what it is. You know that it's good. When you see that sunset on the horizon of the beach as you're sitting, twirling your toes in the sand, just gazing out in the sunset and looking at the beautiful clouds and the oranges and the pinks and the blues all kind of melding together in the background, and you look and you say to yourself, wow, it's beautiful, it's good. And why is it that creation is good? Why is it that nature is good? But when we look at ourselves, when we look at our own hearts, at our own actions in this world, when you click on the 5 o'clock news and you scan through all this various putrid acts that men do of rape and of various crimes of killing people and wrapping them up in blankets and killing them and throwing them in under bridges, or burying them in places where they would have hoped that no one would have found them, or extortion, on and on and on it goes. Mankind does not live up to our true nature. We don't live up to what we were meant to be. And this is the main problem that we have in our world. It is the crux of all problems. All problems funnel down from our inability to achieve our optimal status, our optimal condition of what we should be. And in short, this is because we have fallen short of the glory of God. There is a glory in nature whereof I have just spoken about how it's good. And there's a glory in that goodness. There's something to be admonished. There's something to be praised in that. That glory and that goodness has slowly been fading from mankind, and it continues to fade today. Our virtues are becoming diminished. Now, when we look in Romans, in the first chapter, it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth." It's not that the truth is lost. It's not that the truth is confusing to them. It's that because they don't want to accept it, and the reason that they don't want to accept it is because they are evil, because people don't want to acknowledge their sin. Very much in the same way how when, let's say you have a dog, you come home at night and you find that he's puked under the table, and he goes and he hides somewhere. And he's ashamed. He's ashamed of what he has done. And he puts his paws over his eyes, and he doesn't want to admit what he has done. And you scold him, and he's good for a few days, and then he does it again, and he continually goes back to doing this bad behavior. He doesn't want to honor his owner. He doesn't want to submit to his owner. Maybe he's getting into the trash or something that he shouldn't be eating, and he's digesting that, and now he pukes it up over and over again, and he knows he shouldn't be eating it. But he does it because he seeks pleasure instead of trying to seek the honor of his owner. Man suppresses the truth, and the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against them. How is that wrath of God revealed from heaven against them? For what can be known about God, in verse 19, is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. Two things we see there: eternal power and divine nature. So that when you look at the world around you, when you look at the sky, when you look at the scope of how far away the stars are, when you try to take in the totality of all of our existence on this planet, of how amazing it is, of all these dynamics that are taking place, of all of the physics equations that have to be performed and sustained by God and to allow this whole play of our existence to continue. When you look at the scope of all of these things, you understand the divine nature of God and how he is supremely good, how he supremely provides us with all of these treasures of food and water and air and love and sensuality and sex and all of these treasures that he gives to us. And we see his eternal power. We see this unlimitedness. We have a concept of infinity that we understand in humanity. There is a sense of awe and wonder that we can comprehend as humans. When, let's take for example, you're at the Super Bowl. And right, yeah, I'm at the Super Bowl, and you're at this wonderful, amazing kind of topsy-turvy game. It's your favorite team versus another team who you care less about, and they're going back and forth, and it's getting kind of heated. You don't know who's going to win and who's going to lose, and then all of a sudden your team makes that critical, crucial play. It just seems kind of a little bit out of the ordinary, that it just kind of was pulled off at the last second. The quarterback throws the football in the end zone. Boom, it's a touchdown. What happens? The crowd goes wild. You and all the other fans of that team just get push your hands up and you just go crazy, and you got this guy to the right of you, and he's got the marking under his eyes, and he's all dressed up, and there's this excitement, there's this emotion, there's this force to it. And so my point in saying that is that we as humans, we have the ability to understand this sense of force in the universe. We have this ability to understand that there is excitement, there's joy in the world. And so we question, when we understand these things, where did they come from? Where is this essence at? What is this essence? Well, this essence is God. This essence is shown to us through the things that God has made. God's character is shown to us by the things that we experience in the world. And the lack, or I should say the contrast of God's character is also shown to us by what's manifested in the world, by all of the sin that is in the world, by all of the unrighteousness that's in the world. Because when you look at a sunset and you see that it's beautiful, it's very easy to contrast that to a man who just murdered his wife and murdered his children, and then went on a killing spree and took his blood and wiped it all across the wall and wrote his name and then shot himself. It's pretty easy to contrast that type of event of a sick, deluded, corrupt individual to a sunset and say that we as mankind have fallen from the glory of God. And so I want you to understand those two things, the divine nature and the eternal power. And so keep that in mind when we're going through the book of Genesis in the creation account. Now, let's go back to Genesis. And we left off at the third day. In verse 14, and God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of heavens." I want you to capture the glory of what God did. I want you to think about, in your mind, I want you to see a play of God doing this, of all of the lights and all of just expand your mind and think about the totality of God's creation, the glory of God's creation as we read through this. "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, and the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said that the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Do you see how there's a division of animals there? There is one kind of animal, and there's another species of animal over here. That concept of species is found here in Genesis first. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." This is crucial to understand. If you're a human being and you're listening to me, this applies to you. Verse 27, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female created them." Now, when Barney Frank totally destroys the housing market in America, and he plays with dice sort of say, on housing oversight. And most of the market begins to crash. Not just because of him, but definitely a portion of the blame is on his shoulders. Did he represent the image of God in that? Did he reflect the glory of God in that? Do you think you could say that? No. The reason is because he did a act of evil. He could really have cared less about the quality of life in America or about any of the lifestyles of the people who live here in this country. He could absolutely care less. He wanted to make money, and he had his own political agenda and with his constituents, and he decided to be influential in helping our economy crash. And he does not represent the image of God. He does not reflect the image of God. And all of us fall short of this. All of us, every single person falls short of this. And falling short of the image of God is the main problem we have as humans. The reason we don't have world peace, and we don't have peace in our homes, we don't have peace in our friendships, in our relationships, is because we have diverted from reflecting the image of God and try to reflect an image of ourselves, which is baseless, and trying to be God ourselves, and yet we die as men. We die like animals. Do you see? We put so much glory in men, and yet we are not owed any glory. All of our glory comes from God, and so to have any glory at all, it must be accounted to him. In verse 28, and God blessed them. God blessed you. When you were born, you were blessed. When I was born, I was blessed. Do you have clothes? You're blessed. Do you have clean water to drink? You're blessed. Do you have shoes? You're blessed. Or a job, or a way of means to provide for yourself. You're blessed. God has blessed you. It came from him. He is owed for it. Your life is in his hands. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And watch this, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Now there's so many people that tout today that say, man, we have messed up the earth. We're pouring oil out in the ocean. And, you see fish that get caught in the six-pack plastic wrappers for soda cans. And we have littered our world. We have just treated it like crap. We need to come back and really take dominion over the earth. We need to show responsibility in being the stewards of our planet. Well, this idea, again, is nothing new. It's here in Genesis. We were always given that ability to have dominion over the earth. And each one of us has responsibility in doing that. You don't have to be a college grad or have a PhD to feel accomplished enough to undertake that responsibility. You can look at yourself and say, I am a human being. I was created in the image of God, and therefore I have a purpose in that. And one of those purposes is to have dominion over the earth. And so in that pursuit, we should see that God had already decreed that we should have dominion over the earth. And so we should find inspiration and power from him. In one sense, yes, everybody is trying to survive. But in another sense, we are trying to pour out our inner motivation to subdue the earth. But I think it's subconsciously we understand that we are the stewards of the earth. We have a great expanse over the second most intelligible animal in the universe. I don't know what that one is. I'd have to research it. It might be dolphins. I'm not sure. But the point is that we are more intelligent than the animals. And we have been gifted with communication skills and with various faculties in our minds that allow us to take responsibility and to organize things so that nature runs as it should be. And so in those gifts that are given to us, we understand that subconsciously we are destined to have dominion over the earth. And that command was given to us by God. Now, it says, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, and everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God said everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. And that's why we have 7 days in the week. And that was a concept that was tried to be transformed in the French Revolution. I believe it was to 10 days, and it really didn't work out because 7 days was the setup that God established for creation, and it works well with our sleep cycles and with our general work to rest ratio. It fits naturally with man. And also I want you to understand too that the idea of a woman, you know what, I'm going to leave that because that is in Genesis 2, and we're going to come back to that, and we're going to look at how God created man, and then he also created women, and how those two beings have a certain sense of responsibility to God, and they have a certain sense of responsibility to each other to be honorable and virtuous in the presence of one another and in the presence of everyone. And so one of the things I want you to gain from this is, if you're in America today and you're between the ages of like 18 and 30 or 31, most of us have been brought up in a culture where we kind of feel that life is a joke. We do. You know, I mean, if you were to really take it seriously, if we were to really, all of us wake up tomorrow and look at the plight that our world is in and really take it seriously, I think there would be a huge transformation of how society functions. And we could come to an agreement. We could work out our differences only on the basis of truth, of course, only on the basis of common sense, of what I have been trying to portray in my video here in the short description of the Genesis account. It's important for us to understand where we came from and why we're here. And I think most people are confused and sort of stressed out, especially here in America, because they don't understand those two concepts. They see Christianity and they see the Bible as just some style, you know, or that's what that person does who has their Christian bumper sticker on the back of their car. But when we're all of us, if anything, there is definitely an understanding of whatever belief that you have. All of us seem to be gearing towards looking into spiritual matters a lot more in these difficult times. In the midst of some obscure 2012 Mayan prophecy, which is very misunderstood in our world, in light of economic turmoil, in light of the moral decay that is occurring, I believe, because a lot of people here in America, and I'm sure it's occurring in Europe too, a lot more so because their economics have been going down by the wayside a lot more so than us. A lot of people feel just kind of like they're on a hamster wheel. You know what I mean? And so I think what's happening is while we're on this hamster wheel and a lot of people are kind of repeating the same things in their life, the same failures, and they're becoming a compromising attitude towards each other and towards themselves. You know, this pursuit of money and this pursuit of the American dream is starting to change quite a bit, and a lot of people are being left with a bad taste in their mouth. And when we think about business, when we think about how we're supposed to work to help one another, that's what business does. Ultimately, good business is providing goods or services that allow people to live in peace and harmony with one another. Then we do understand that it is a way, when we have dominion over the earth and we have dominion over the creatures of the earth, the birds and the animals, it's very simple, that also, because we share the same responsibility, we have a sense of helping each other to accomplish that, so that everybody can have dominion and be able to perform their responsibility before God without any difficulty. I should say, without any hindrance from one another. But the problem is that so many of us are geared and guided by our own selfish desires. And so at the end of the day, we come to the point where we say, hey, look, I really don't care. It really doesn't matter to me. But you know what? When you think about world peace, and you think about the world coming together as one, and you think about all of these wonderful ideals and virtues that man should be able to exude, you're part of mankind. You're part of that responsibility. And so if you want to see that, type of dream come real, we have to work together. We have to understand who we are as a people and work on that basis. And at the end of the day, it comes down to concluding on one truth. It is now time for you to begin your spiritual journey and to ask those questions that many people around you, naysayers and doubters and critics, and people would say, oh, you're crazy for doing such things. Well, they're unhappy too. It's time for them, as well as you, to begin that pursuit on that spiritual journey so that you can understand why you're here. And I invite you to notice the truth that is concluded and clearly presented in the Bible. And so let us begin here. Let us begin in creation. And let us go back and let us set aside any preconceived notions we have and begin anew. And that is my calling to you. That is my purpose in making this video to you today. I wish you well, and I hope that you have many blessings in your life, and that God starts to awaken your eyes and starts to give you hope and peace in Christ Jesus and in truth. May God bless you.